I'm sure you've seen the amazing videos where people say, I have grown to 1,000 subscribers in like 30 seconds. Okay, maybe not 30 seconds, but maybe in 30 days or something like that. So in the fast-paced hustle mentality, productivity junkie kind of culture that we're in, that can almost feel like a norm, right? It can feel like everybody's moving at a really fast pace, achieving these remarkable results in a very short period of time. But what happens when this isn't your reality? And I'm not talking specifically about YouTube. I'm saying what happens when your life doesn't feel fast-paced with fast results. So today we're diving deep into what success can look like for those who don't subscribe to that kind of culture. So stick with me to the very end, because I'll be sharing why most of us succumb to the pressure of the very culture that we don't even subscribe to. So today we're going to have 3 talking points. What success can look like when you don't subscribe to the hustle mentality, what motivation can look like when you're walking that path, and what it can feel like for the person choosing that path. So the first point is really talking about what INFP success can look like. And I'm not saying that this is how every INFP needs to quantify their success, but I really just wanted to share it from my own experience being here on YouTube. For the first 6 months, I created 12 videos. So I wasn't posting regularly. I think I was posting every other week, and I had posted 12 videos, gained 121 views, and 6 subscribers. Most people feel like, well, that wasn't much of a success. What do you feel like that's something you want to share here on YouTube to other people? Is this supposed to be clickbait or whatever it was? So today's topic is really inspired by something we started discussing in the last video, and I'll link it up here. And I'm going to give a shout out to an amazing comment by Dandy Bambi. The topic says, just stumbled upon your channel. I am obsessed. I feel like hustle culture is spearheaded by incredibly extroverted folk who tend to frown upon those who need a little more downtime to process their day-to-day for long-term success. Motivation is incredibly subjective, and everyone has different levels that don't make them more or less successful. I wanted to talk about the importance of showing up, being authentic, and sharing from the heart. That's what those 6 months represented for me. And I speak specifically about those 6 months because after that, things just started to grow. But I almost feel like we can almost invalidate those moments because they don't have the external validation that most people then equate to being a success. I've been on YouTube for a year now, and I love it today as I loved it then. A good friend of mine who is also a YouTuber and a coach and a trainer, I will link his YouTube channel down below, made a really good video. And in that video, he talked about how we don't hear stories of people who quote unquote don't make it, right? Every time we hear the stories of, I started YouTube yesterday, today I'm at 10,000 subscribers, and we tend to think, well, if I started my journey today and I didn't hit those numbers, it must mean that I didn't succeed. Yet there are hundreds of thousands of people who started yesterday who didn't make that number. But we don't hear their stories. We don't hear their struggles. We don't hear their journey unless or until they make those big numbers. What happens to the other people? Where is the inspiration for the other people who are creating? They're not blowing up. They're not in the productivity hustle culture. What's happening to their stories? We never really hear them. We only hear the very few and selected stories. It almost feels like that's the norm. So it's really important. I know we started having this conversation in my last video to say we need to have a different way of redefining what success can look like for us as highly sensitive people, as INFPs, because if and when we don't, we're only making the situation worse for people like you and I who want to be creative, who wants to maybe follow our dream and our passion and have a business or be on YouTube or live, work, and pursue whatever the thing that you're passionate about. But what happens when it doesn't have that external validation that looks like what other people attribute to being successful? do we then get discouraged and give up? Or do we find our own way of defining what our own success can look like? And so I am opening the door to really have discussion. I'm not making conclusions here, and I'm not saying this is the way to go. I'm rather opening a door to say, I would love to know what this actually looks like for you and me, the ordinary people that don't subscribe to that kind of culture. What can our success look like? Will that be enough for us? Is it enough to have aspirations, go for them, make a living, even if it doesn't hit those coveted numbers? So let me know in the comment section, where do you stand with this? Do you see as necessary to define our own way, or do you see as success has only a certain way, and if we don't fit in that, then it's not valid and it's not a success? Or are we kidding ourselves? Are we just falling short and therefore trying to make peace with our mediocre ways? Whatever it is, I will be really interested to hear your responses and your thoughts. So make sure you leave them in the comment section below. One of the things that I've heard so many people ask, and you have been commenting this in the videos that I've done previously, is, do INFPs lack motivation? I personally don't believe INFPs lack motivation. I actually just think their motivation looks different to what other people call motivation. So for example, in the career workshop that I do, I help my students to recognize that what they are motivated by may be very different to what everybody else is motivated by. And there are 3 different types of motivation that I actually cover in the workshop: intrinsic, extrinsic, and an alternative view of looking at motivation. And I define this in my own way. So with extrinsic motivation, I say, I am of value because I have these things. So this is the having state. In the intrinsic motivation, I define that as, I am of value because I do these things. This is the doing state. And then I offer a different motivation, an alternative motivation, to say, I am of value because I am. And this is the being state. So what I try to highlight with these points is to say, INFPs are less likely to be motivated by the having and the doing state as they are about being state. It's just most of the time they just don't have the language that's what they're experiencing. So because that's what's going on, and they are really focusing more being who they are in their values, in their passion, existing and being who they really want to be, it can look like they're not driven by the having state and the doing state. So they're not filling their calendar with activities and doing things and being different places to be validated as being successful. And they may not be driven by having a certain status or owning certain things to be seen to be successful. And because they're not driven by what the majority quantify as being successful, they can look as though they lack motivation because they're not driven by the same things as most people around them. Let me know in the comment section if that's actually making sense, if that's resonating with you, or if you've actually seen it that way, or what you think is actually going on here. Because in my observation, I see INFPs as pursuing that road less traveled kind of approach with life. They go in uncharted territory, and that can feel pretty lonely. Can you see that? Because it's not a road and it's not a path that most people who subscribe to the having state or the doing state as sign of success, it can leave INFPs to feel pretty alone in the way they approach the world and the way they go about the world, going against the grain, which is what most people always ask. Why do INFPs feel lonely? And I think I've covered a little bit about that in a previous video when I talked about characteristics with INFP, and I'll put a playlist up here. Most INFPs feel lonely not because they can't relate and don't have people around them. It's because most of the time they're making choices that are not embraced by a lot of people around them, or celebrated as being amazing by people around them. This is why most INFPs end up just succumbing to the pressure, because understandably, nobody wants to feel alone. We are creatures that are made to connect and belong. So when you feel like nobody's recognizing, validating, celebrating your message, it feels like a relief to finally just say, forget it. Let me go with the culture that internally that INFP actually really just wants to rebel against. So I do see this with a lot of you who have been contacting me about your journeys as entrepreneurs, what it looks like, because you don't aspire to the same things as other entrepreneurs, and what you see as direction out there is quantifying that success and quantifying that path with the having and the doing state. And you're saying, where can I belong and celebrate my being state, right? And even though we can relate in the struggle, I wonder how much we can perhaps relate in the solution. The solution being redefining our own way of saying what is successful, redefining our own pace of life so that it's not going at the pace that doesn't work for us. Most of us can say, I want that self-directed, self-paced life. I know for the longest, for me as an INFP and a highly sensitive person, I've always aspired to and gravitated towards self-paced, self-directed work. And in walking that path for this long, I realized how much functionality really does play as much importance as our skills and our gifts as intuitive people, as highly sensitive people, as introverts. Because it's within the functionalities that we can design less overwhelming, less chaotic, calm life that we all desire, because it's within the calm that we can really be our creative selves. And that's been the main focus for me. I wonder what has been the main focus for you. What has helped you carve out the kind of career that has worked for you? I'll be really interested to know. Make sure you comment that in the comment section below. I want us to have a dialogue that moves the needle in our community. I want us to have opportunities to voice things that we may otherwise have done in small pockets. I want us to start looking for ways to establish our lives in ways that unapologetically mean something to us. And if you've watched my previous videos, I kept saying, can we give shout outs to what we call ourselves, right? And someone made a really great suggestion. We can call ourselves dear ones. And there were some mentions of INFPs and sensitive ones and so forth. How do you feel about calling ourselves sensitive ones? I don't know. Let me know what you think, or if you have more ideas of what a name we should call ourselves. And I am thinking of perhaps finding a way we can have more dialogues, and I can have opportunities for you to come on more. I don't know if it's going to be like a live or a podcast or something like that, because I want to be able to have really deeper conversations about things like this, because this is the reason I started this YouTube channel. So let me know your thoughts. If you think we should be kind of having a podcast, or probably we'll have to maybe move it to a different channel if it's just going to be a lot of lives, just because YouTube algorithm gets confused about what are you about, what you're doing. And I don't want to lose the opportunity that people have to watch the on-demand videos that has helped you and me help others as well. And I want to keep making those kind of videos, like this type of videos. But I also want to have really deep conversations on the way that we can exist and pursue our careers in a way that works for us as highly sensitive people, as INFPs. And so I am just juggling ideas, and I'm throwing out there to see what would resonate with you. Right now, I'm just thinking maybe have a podcast that also kind of airs on YouTube, and we can do live streams or something like that. If I hear a lot of you kind of liking that idea and going with it, then I will take it forward. If you just prefer for me to do this kind of on-demand videos, we'll continue this way. If you would benefit from being on live streams, us talking and you asking questions and me responding, us having a dialogue, then we can also pursue that as well as maintaining this. I just want to kind of throw it out there, and also just share potential community name being Sensitive Ones. And if you like that, let me know. If you have more suggestions, let me know that too. And as we always say on this channel, let's focus on being than doing. And until next time, may you have a rested life.